After the divorce ended, Anna felt like her life had been folded in half and placed back on a shelf where it no longer belonged. She left the small apartment she once shared and carried only a single bag that held clothes and quiet memories. The city felt heavy, filled with streets that reminded her of promises that had slowly faded. She avoided looking back as she walked away, telling herself that staying would only keep old pain alive. What she did not expect was that the past had already chosen a new way to find her. It arrived not with noise or drama but with a letter waiting in her bag, one she did not remember placing there. The paper was aged and the handwriting was careful, familiar in a way that made her chest tighten. It was from her grandfather, a man who had been distant yet deeply important, and the words inside would change everything she thought she knew about herself. The letter was short but heavy with meaning, written as if every word mattered more than the last. It spoke of a castle hidden beyond hills and trees, a place Anna had heard about only once as a child. Her grandfather wrote that the castle now belonged to her, left behind without conditions or demands. There was no mention of money or comfort, only a promise that what waited inside would give answers she never thought to ask. Anna read the letter again and again, feeling confusion mix with a strange sense of calm. She had nothing left tying her to the city, no reason to stay where her life had cracked apart. The idea of leaving felt frightening, yet it also felt honest. For the first time in months, she felt pulled forward instead of pushed back. She folded the letter carefully, knowing she would follow its call. The journey north was long and quiet, passing through open land where buildings thinned and the sky felt wider. Anna sat by the window, watching towns blur into fields, then forests, then hills covered in mist. With every mile, the noise in her head softened, replaced by questions she could not yet answer. She wondered why her grandfather had waited until now, and why he had chosen her. Their last conversation had been distant, filled with pauses and things unsaid. As the train slowed and finally stopped, Anna stepped onto a platform that felt untouched by time. The air was cold and clean, carrying the scent of earth and pine. A small road waited ahead, leading upward toward the hills, as if inviting her to continue without hesitation. People in the village noticed her immediately, though no one spoke a word. Their eyes followed her with quiet understanding, not curiosity, as if they had expected her arrival. When she asked for directions, an older woman simply pointed toward a narrow path disappearing into the trees. No questions were asked, no warnings given. Anna felt a strange mix of comfort and unease as she followed the path, her steps echoing softly. The forest grew thicker, the light dimmer, and the world behind her seemed to fade. She felt as though she was walking not just into a place, but into a story that had already begun long before she arrived. Her heartbeat steadied as the ground rose, and the air grew cooler with each step. The castle revealed itself slowly, first as a shadow through the mist, then as stone walls rising above the trees. It stood tall and silent, worn by age but unbroken, as if it refused to be forgotten. Anna stopped at the iron gate, her hand resting against its cold surface as memories she did not own brushed against her thoughts. The gate opened with effort, its sound echoing across the empty courtyard. She stepped inside, feeling the weight of history settle around her shoulders. The stones beneath her feet were smooth from countless footsteps, and she wondered who had walked there before her. Despite the silence, the place did not feel abandoned. It felt watchful, patient, as though it had been waiting for her arrival. Inside the castle, the halls were wide and dimly lit by narrow windows that let in pale light. Portraits lined the walls, their faces unfamiliar yet filled with expressions that felt personal. Anna moved slowly, her fingers brushing the stone as she walked, grounding herself in the moment. She noticed candles placed carefully along tables and shelves, unlit but ready. The air was cool, carrying a faint scent of old wood and paper. Each room she passed seemed to pull her deeper, guiding her without words. She did not feel fear, only a growing sense that she was exactly where she needed to be. The castle seemed to recognize her, responding to her presence with quiet acceptance. At the far end of the main hall stood a wooden door unlike the others, darker and marked with symbols she did not understand. Anna paused before it, feeling a familiar ache in her chest, the same feeling she had felt when her marriage ended. It was the feeling of standing on the edge of truth. Her grandfather's words echoed in her mind, reminding her that what waited inside was not comfort, but honesty. She placed her hand on the handle, noticing how steady it felt despite everything she had been through. The door opened easily, revealing a room untouched by time. Dust did not cover the floor, and the air felt warmer, almost welcoming. At the center of the room stood a long table, and on it rested a wooden box sealed with care. Anna recognized her name carved into its surface, written in her grandfather's hand. The sight of it made her breath slow, tears pressing behind her eyes without warning. She understood then that this was not an inheritance meant to replace what she had lost. It was an invitation to understand it. The box did not promise escape or comfort, but something deeper and more difficult. As Anna stepped closer, she realized that opening it would not only reveal her grandfather's secret, but also force her to face parts of herself she had long ignored. And for the first time since her life broke apart, she felt ready to listen. If you want, say continue part 2 and I will continue the story with the same structure and intensity. Anna stood before the wooden box for a long time, feeling the quiet press against her thoughts, as if the room itself was listening to her breath. She did not rush because something inside told her that speed would break the meaning of the moment. The carvings on the box felt warm under her fingers even though the air was cool around her. Memories of her grandfather came back slowly, not as clear pictures but as feelings of safety and distance mixed together. She remembered his calm voice and how he always looked at her as if he saw more than she said. That look returned now stronger than ever, filling the room with an unseen presence. When she finally lifted the lid, she felt no fear, only a deep steady pull toward understanding. Inside the box were papers tied with a faded ribbon along with a small key and a journal bound in worn leather. Anna picked up the journal first, sensing that it carried the heart of what had been left for her. The pages were filled with her grandfather's handwriting, careful and steady, telling a story that began long before she was born. He wrote about the castle not as a place of pride, but as a refuge built during a time of loss and rebuilding. The words spoke of choices made in silence and sacrifices hidden behind ordinary lives. Anna read slowly, letting each page settle before turning to the next. The journal did not explain everything at once, but it invited patience and reflection. As she read, she felt parts of her own life begin to line up with the past in quiet ways. Her grandfather wrote about a truth that ran through their family like a quiet river, unseen but always present. The castle was not meant to be lived in forever, but to be returned to when life stripped everything else away. He wrote that each generation faced a moment when they had to decide whether to run from pain or walk into it with open eyes. Anna felt the weight of those words because they echoed her own recent choices. The divorce had left her feeling broken, but the journal suggested that breaking was sometimes the beginning of clarity. Her grandfather admitted his own failures and regrets without hiding behind pride. That honesty moved Anna more than comfort ever could. She realized the secret inside the castle was not an object, but a lesson waiting to be claimed. As daylight faded, Anna explored the room further, noticing shelves built into the walls filled with records, maps, and letters. Each item told a piece of a larger story about people who had come here when they had nowhere else to stand. She touched the stone walls, imagining hands from the past resting there in moments of doubt and hope. The castle no longer felt large or empty, but layered with quiet courage. Anna understood that her grandfather had not left her wealth in the usual sense. He had left her a place to slow down and listen to herself. The key from the box fit into a small door she had not noticed before, hidden behind a hanging cloth. When she opened it, she found a narrow stairway leading downward, softly lit by small windows. The lower level of the castle was simpler and warmer than the upper halls. There was a small kitchen, a table, and a fireplace that looked as though it had been used recently. Anna felt a strange comfort there, as if the space was meant to hold someone gently rather than impress them. She sat at the table, letting the silence wrap around her without pressure. For the first time since the divorce, she did not feel the need to explain herself to anyone. The castle asked nothing from her except presence and honesty. She noticed how her breathing slowed and how the tightness in her chest eased little by little. In that quiet space, she allowed herself to feel tired without guilt. The secret was changing her already, not loudly but steadily. That night, Anna slept deeply in a small room near the fire. Her dreams were calm, filled with open landscapes and long paths instead of closed doors. When she woke, the morning light streamed through the window, soft and patient. She realized she had not dreamed of her past life once, and that realization surprised her. The castle had given her rest without effort. As she stepped outside, she saw the valley below covered in mist slowly lifting as the sun rose. It felt like a reflection of her own thoughts clearing. She understood then that healing did not always come through answers but through space. The castle had given her space to breathe and to be still. Later that day, Anna returned to the journal, finishing the final pages with careful attention. Her grandfather wrote that the castle was now hers to keep or to leave, but the lesson must never be ignored. He believed that strength came from knowing when to stay and when to move forward. The divorce had taught Anna how it felt to lose direction, but the castle was teaching her how to choose again. She closed the journal feeling gratitude instead of sadness. The secret inside had not erased her pain, but it had given it meaning. She knew now that her next steps would come from clarity, not fear. The path ahead was still unknown, but it no longer felt empty. As evening settled, Anna stood once more in the main hall, looking at the portraits with new eyes. She no longer wondered who those people were, but understood that they were reflections of choice and endurance. The castle was not an ending, and it was not an escape. It was a turning point placed carefully in her life at the moment she needed it most. Anna felt steady, grounded, and quietly hopeful. The secret had changed everything, not by adding something new, but by revealing what had always been there. And as she prepared for what came next, she knew this was only the beginning of a much larger journey. Morning settled gently over the castle, and Anna moved through the halls with a new sense of belonging that felt quiet but firm inside her chest. She opened windows and let fresh air roll through the rooms, carrying light and distant sounds from the valley below. Each step echoed softly, yet no longer felt lonely because the silence now felt shared instead of empty. She began to clean small spaces, not because they were dirty, but because movement helped her think. As her hands worked, her mind followed slow paths into memories she had avoided before. The divorce no longer felt like a sharp wound, but like a closed door that had led her here. She realized the castle was teaching her how to live without rushing away from her own thoughts. As the days passed, Anna discovered that people from the nearby village watched the castle closely, even if they rarely approached it. One afternoon she noticed a figure standing at the edge of the trees, someone waiting patiently rather than hiding. When Anna walked closer, the person bowed slightly and introduced himself as Leo, a caretaker who checked on the land when needed. His voice was calm and respectful, and he spoke as if the castle was alive and deserving of care. Leo explained that her grandfather had trusted him and that he had been asked to watch until Anna arrived. There was no pressure in his words, only quiet relief. Anna felt comforted knowing she was not alone in understanding the place. Their conversation was simple yet meaningful, rooted in shared respect rather than questions. Leo showed Anna paths around the land, places where the ground was strong and others where it was best to walk lightly. He spoke of seasons changing and how the castle adapted without resistance. Anna listened closely, realizing how much she had resisted change in her own life. The land around the castle seemed to accept loss and growth as equal parts of time. Standing on a hill overlooking the valley, Anna felt something shift inside her. She understood that strength did not always mean holding on, sometimes it meant letting life move through you. Leo left her there without ceremony, trusting her to find her own way back. That trust stayed with her long after he disappeared into the trees. Later, Anna returned to the lower rooms of the castle and began sorting the records she had seen earlier. Letters written by strangers told stories of rebuilding after loss, of finding purpose when certainty had vanished. Anna read about choices made with care rather than fear, and each story felt like a quiet guide. She noticed a pattern where people who came to the castle arrived broken, but left clearer, not because their pain vanished but because it made sense. This realization changed how she viewed her own past. She stopped asking why things ended and started asking what they taught her. The castle did not answer questions directly, but it shaped better ones. In that space, Anna began to forgive herself for staying too long in places that no longer fit. One evening as rain brushed softly against the stone walls, Anna lit a fire and sat alone with her thoughts. She allowed memories of her marriage to surface without pushing them away. She remembered laughter shared in small moments and the quiet distance that slowly grew between two people who stopped listening. Instead of anger, she felt understanding. Not everything failed because someone was wrong, sometimes it failed because people changed. That truth settled into her calmly, without bitterness. The fire crackled steadily, grounding her in the present. She realized she had been afraid of being alone when what she feared was being unheard. The castle had heard her from the moment she arrived. As weeks passed, Anna noticed a change in how she carried herself. Her movements were slower, but more certain, her thoughts less tangled. She began writing in a journal of her own, not to record events, but to explore feelings she had ignored. Words came easily in that quiet place, forming thoughts she had never spoken aloud. Writing became a way to listen inwardly without judgment. She wrote about fear of starting again and the strange excitement that came with it. She admitted she did not know where she would go next, and that uncertainty no longer frightened her. The castle gave her permission to pause without falling behind. That freedom felt like a gift she had waited years to receive. One afternoon, Anna received a message from her old life, a short note asking if she planned to return. She read it once and set it aside without reply. The absence of urgency surprised her because she no longer felt pulled backward. Instead, she felt grounded where she stood, surrounded by stone and sky. The castle had not erased her past, but it had softened its grip. She understood that she did not need to prove anything to anyone. Her value did not come from endurance alone, but from awareness. That realization felt steady and lasting. She smiled quietly, knowing she would answer when she was ready, not before. As the season shifted, the valley changed color and the air grew crisp. Anna stood at the gate, one morning, looking down the path she had first walked with uncertainty. Now the path felt familiar, not because it promised safety, but because it promised honesty. She knew that staying forever was not the purpose of the castle. Its purpose was to prepare her to walk forward with clarity. She felt gratitude toward her grandfather for trusting her with this moment in her life. The secret inside had shaped her quietly without force. Anna turned back toward the castle, ready for what came next, knowing the next choice would be hers alone. Anna woke before sunrise with a feeling that something inside her had settled into place. The castle felt different that morning, not changed, but awake, as if it sensed her growing clarity. She moved through the halls, slowly touching the stone walls as she passed, letting the quiet guide her. For the first time she was not searching for meaning, because meaning had already found her. The past weeks had reshaped her without force, and now she felt ready to look outward again. She stepped into the courtyard and breathed in the cool air, feeling steady in her body. The valley below stretched wide and open, reminding her that life continued beyond stone walls. She knew then that staying forever was not the purpose of this place, but learning was. As the day unfolded, Anna met Leo near the lower path where the land softened into grass. He greeted her with the same calm respect, as always, as if he could sense the shift within her. They walked together without hurry, sharing observations about the land and the season. Leo spoke of balance and how every place had its time for holding and its time for release. Anna listened carefully, realizing how deeply that truth echoed her own journey. She shared how the castle had helped her see herself clearly without judgment. Leo nodded, as if this was what he had expected all along. Their words were simple but carried weight, built from quiet understanding. In the days that followed, Anna began to prepare the castle for rest rather than retreat. She cleaned rooms gently and closed windows with care, not with sadness. Each action felt like a thank you rather than a goodbye. She organized the records and letters, leaving them ready for whoever might need them next. The castle did not resist her movements, as if it accepted her intention. She understood that endings did not weaken meaning, they completed it. Her divorce had once felt like failure, but now it felt like a redirection. The castle had shown her that leaving could be an act of respect, not loss. One evening Anna sat near the fire, writing in her journal with steady hands. She wrote about who she had been and who she was becoming. She admitted her fears without letting them rule her choices. She acknowledged the strength it took to walk away from what no longer fit. The words flowed easily, shaped by honesty rather than hope alone. She no longer needed permission to begin again. The silence around her felt supportive, not empty. She closed the journal knowing these words would guide her beyond the castle. As she walked through the halls one last time, Anna studied the portraits again. They no longer felt distant or unknown. She saw them as markers of courage rather than reminders of duty. Each face reflected someone who had stood at a crossroads and chosen awareness. She felt connected to them not by blood alone but by shared resolve. The castle had held generations through moments of change. Now it had held her through hers. That continuity gave her confidence rather than pressure. When the morning came, Anna packed lightly just as she had arrived. She carried the journal and a few personal items, nothing more. Standing at the gate, she paused, not because she doubted, but because she wanted to remember. The castle stood behind her, silent and strong, unchanged by her leaving. She understood that it would remain for others when needed. Her grandfather had trusted her with this moment, and she had honored it. She felt gratitude without heaviness. Then she turned toward the path with calm certainty. As Anna walked down the path, she felt the world open around her. The forest no longer felt like a boundary but a passage. Each step forward carried intention rather than escape. She thought about where she might go next, not as a plan but as possibility. The divorce no longer defined her story but informed it. The castle had given her something rare, the ability to choose without fear. She smiled quietly at the thought of what might come. Her journey was continuing, not ending. By the time she reached the edge of the village, the sun was high. Life moved gently around her, people tending to their days without urgency. Anna blended into the rhythm, easily carrying her calm forward. She was no longer running from pain or waiting for answers. She was moving with awareness shaped by experience. The secret inside the castle had changed everything by revealing herself to herself. And with that truth steady in her heart, she stepped fully into what came next. Anna walked forward with steady steps, feeling the ground beneath her as something real and supportive. The path away from the castle did not feel like distance but like continuation. She carried the calm she had learned rather than memories that weighed her down. Each breath felt full and unhurried, as if time itself had softened. The world around her seemed clearer, not brighter but more honest. She noticed small details like the sound of wind through leaves and the warmth of sunlight. These moments no longer slipped past her unnoticed. They anchored her in the present, where she felt most alive. As she reached a small town beyond the valley, Anna found a quiet place to stay. It was simple and warm, offering comfort without excess. She rested there, allowing herself to exist without explanation. Days passed gently, and she spent them walking, reading, and writing. She listened to people speak and noticed how every life carried its own quiet struggle. Instead of feeling separate, she felt connected in a calm way. Her story was no longer heavier than others. It was simply hers, and that was enough. Anna began helping where she could without needing recognition. She assisted in small tasks and shared time rather than advice. People responded to her presence with ease, sensing her openness. She did not speak much about the castle or her past. She did not need to, because her clarity spoke for her. Her actions were grounded and thoughtful, shaped by what she had learned. The strength she carried was gentle but unmistakable. It came from understanding rather than force. At night, Anna continued writing, not as reflection but as direction. Her words shaped ideas about what kind of life she wanted. She wrote about balance, honesty, and listening before reacting. She allowed her dreams to take form slowly without pressure. There was no urgency to decide everything at once. The castle had taught her patience with herself. That patience became her guide in moments of uncertainty. She trusted it fully. One afternoon, Anna received another message from her past. This time she read it carefully without tension. She felt no need to defend or retreat. She responded simply with truth and kindness. The reply felt complete because it matched who she had become. There was no reopening of old wounds, only quiet closure. She understood that endings could be peaceful. And peace was not weakness. As seasons shifted again, Anna noticed her confidence deepen. She made choices without second-guessing their value. When something felt wrong, she stepped back without guilt. When something felt right, she leaned into it fully. Her awareness had become instinctive and reliable. She no longer searched for permission to live honestly. That freedom was the true inheritance she had received. It stayed with her wherever she went. One evening Anna stood beneath an open sky filled with stars. She thought of her grandfather not with sadness but gratitude. His gift had not been stone walls or quiet halls. It had been trust in her ability to face herself. She carried that trust forward as something alive. The castle remained part of her story without defining it. Its lesson lived on through her choices. That knowledge felt steady and complete. Over time, Anna began shaping a future rooted in purpose. She chose work that aligned with her values, not expectations. Her days held meaning because she listened to herself. Challenges still came, but they no longer felt overwhelming. She met them with presence rather than fear. The divorce was now a chapter that had guided her growth. It no longer held power over her identity. She had reclaimed that for herself. As Anna looked ahead, she felt neither certainty nor doubt. She felt readiness grounded in experience and clarity. Life continued to unfold with complexity and beauty intertwined. She accepted both without resistance. The secret inside the castle had changed everything quietly. It revealed that wholeness comes from awareness, not perfection. With that truth steady within her, Anna stepped forward. Her journey continued, open and fully her own.